This, right now, is the moment conservatives can enact permanent policy change, not just half-loaf compromises that we conservatives have been conditioned to accept as the best-case scenario. Rebuild our economy, rebuild our military, rebuild our local communities to answer the challenges of the coming generation. You're gonna make me blush. Thank you. Thank you. And when I blush, my bald head gets really red. You're very kind. I'm really, really grateful. And I accept all of that applause on behalf of my great colleagues at the Heritage Foundation. How about a round of applause for them? Many members of our board are here. It's my obligation, of course, always to acknowledge that, but I really mean it because they're awesome people. The best board in the business. Give them a round of applause, please. And that is a true statement. They are the best in the business. We love them. And I should say, it's always wonderful being at this great property, any of the properties of the wonderful corporation that is Ritz-Carlton, and it's because of their people. And we have a custom at Heritage of being grateful for everyone. And I just want to tell our friends who have been wonderful the last few days, you are the best in the business. Thank you, God bless you, and Heritage love you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. You're awesome. And it is a real honor to follow someone who's become truly a great friend. We text or talk, I think, every Saturday morning and beyond that, usually talking about challenges ahead for the movement and our respective roles. And of course, we're aiming for the same thing, which is to revitalize this republic through self-governance. And in this really messy, crazy environment filled with a lot of sharp elbows, and that would be politics just on our side, that when we can know the truth, when we can be conservative and not be angry about it, we actually bring people to the cause. And I just have to tell you, and it is sincere, my wife Michelle knows this, as the president of Heritage, I have not always agreed with every tactic or every legislative outcome in the last 18 months in Congress. But what I can say is that Mike Johnson is one of the finest men I've ever met in my life, and you ought to pray for him every day because he's a great American. And I should also say, we agree almost all the time with what he's doing. He has a very narrow majority, as you know, a couple new seats, new members in the last week because of the great state of Florida. And Floridians, and as Ryan Walker was saying to me yesterday, he said, Speaker Johnson's just showing he can pull rabbit out of hat, rabbit out of hat, rabbit out of hat. Maybe God's got a plan for this republic. So pray for him, support him. And I can tell you that if I think about Mike Johnson, I think about Donald Trump, I think about J.D. Vance, all of whom are friends of our institution and therefore friends of yours, it seems as if there might be some providential plan for the men and women being put into these key positions. And it's such an honor on behalf of Heritage, which would mean not just my colleagues, but all of you and the hundreds of thousands of people who make our work possible to speak the truth. So most of all, after this series of thank yous, thank you. Thank you for making our work possible. Thanks for attending this conference, making the conference possible. And really, I have to say, in this increasingly virtual world, thanks for being here. Thanks for being here in person. Thanks for accepting the charge that I gave all of us a couple of days ago, which is to provide us feedback. And of course, we love to hear all the things that are positive and celebratory. But I have to tell you, the culture that we sustain at Heritage equally honors all of the constructive feedback about things that could be tweaked or modified. And it's really that special sauce that makes Heritage so effective. When you take the involvement of people who share not just their treasure, with their talent and their time, and you pair that with the best policy scholars on the planet, and with the best events people on the planet, and the best communications people on the planet, you end up having something called heritage that is setting the world on fire, figuratively for the left. So thanks for all the great conversations. We're going to have some more after this 3-hour speech later tonight. My wife, Michelle, is saying, that is possible. For sharing your thoughts, your wisdom, and especially for some of you who shall remain nameless, but you know who you are, for your fire all week. As you've no doubt come to know, I like fire. And as my older sister still reminds me, I always have since I was a little boy. And occasionally talking about that in DC gets me in trouble. In the heat of battle in Washington, sometimes it's easy to forget that heritage and the whole conservative movement is a community, not merely a cause, a fellowship of friends and patriots. The last few days have been a heartening reminder that saving America is a team sport. And what a team. We opened this conference talking about gratitude for everything we've been able to accomplish these last few months. Then we spent 2 days together listening to everything our scholars and project leaders are working on. And now, all I can think about is how excited I am about our opportunity of what we can accomplish. It's about today and also about tomorrow. You already know conservatives right now have been given a generational opportunity, a once-in-a-lifetime chance to shift our country's trajectory back toward people and values that Washington has for too long been leaving behind. They're the 5 values that Ronald Reagan, of all people, espoused when he won the Republican Party's presidential nomination in 1980. Family, work, neighborhood, peace, and freedom. Now, more than any time since Reagan, those values are making a comeback. Rejoice in hope, St. Paul tells us in his letter to the Romans. How could we not after everything we've just heard? The Heritage Foundation's mission going forward is nothing less than revitalizing this republic. We're already working on it with all our partners in Washington, the conservative movement, in the Trump administration and Congress, and of course around the country. All week, we heard about the different pieces of our plan. Just to recount for you, we heard Tom Homan and Laura Reese tell us about how Heritage is working with the president and his team to make our border secure, our cities safe, and bring back the rule of law to our immigration system. We heard Tyler O'Neill and Mike Howell tell us about how Doge and Heritage are working together to cut down the woktopus. We're exposing the dark money networks that are using Americans' tax dollars to fund the left's cultural revolution. We heard Rob Bluey tell us about the Daily Signal and how it's shaking up the media landscape in Washington and taking the fight for the truth to the states. And we heard from Ryan Walker and Janae Strachey on Heritage Action's work, advancing conservative reform in the states. The successes to sustain in Georgia and Arizona, and their battle plans for the huge fights in New Jersey and Virginia right now. And of course, the midterms next year in key states like South Carolina, Michigan, Wisconsin, New York, California, nationwide. We want to be active everywhere. And to be clear, we're going to elect another conservative governor in Virginia this fall. We heard from Lindsay Burke about the Heritage Foundation's leadership in the fight to take back our colleges and universities now that President Trump is dismantling the Department of Education. Someone's celebrating that, as they should. We heard about our 3 new initiatives from Tiffany Justice, the catalyst who will supercharge a national network to restore parents' rightful authority to direct the upbringing, the education, and the care of their children. Amazing we even have to say that as a policy objective. From Robbie Starbuck, what a star late this morning. The game changer, who will leverage capital and capital markets to eradicate DEI, crush ESG, and help restore American companies and brands in a dynamic private sector. And from Jay Richards, our Maha trailblazer leading our Restoring American Wellness initiative. A decade from now, this may prove to have been the most important work that we do this year. We heard from Dr. E.J. Antoni, the best-dressed economist on the planet. Is E.J. still here? That will cost me, but I say it all the time. We heard from E.J., a great friend, about how heritage policies are helping the Trump administration and Congress unleash America's energy sector. We heard from Dr. Victoria Coates lay out Heritage's work helping the Trump administration make America's military stronger, more efficient, and more capable of winning the new Cold War against China. We heard from Heritage's Lady Liberty, Bridget Wagner. That gets me in trouble twice. And of course, Mr. Liberty, David Caldwell, about all the preparations we're helping to make for America's 250th birthday next year. And we also heard throughout this conference from someone who's very good at policy, very good at communications, and is the glue, not just at conferences like this, but also inside the heritage culture, the unparalleled Genevieve Wood. There's a theme to tonight's conference, and is it just self-governance? It's that Genevieve, who has the good sense to be a Texas Longhorn fan, was joined by Mary Catherine Mahalik, who is a University of Texas alumna. And you know, someone who runs Heritage also likes the University of Texas. So you're welcome. Y'all like us being in the SEC so far? Yeah, the Georgia fans at this table are saying, yeah, we beat you twice. And your prayer was so good. Actually, it really was. Nice job, William. Let's not forget, yeah, we have fun at Heritage. These last few days, we've also heard from you. You're all as much a part of this as anyone, and I hope you feel that very sincerely. Your questions and your comments, as I mentioned, challenge us. Your stories and your courage inspire us. The legacies you're building, the American dreams you're still living and passing on are our posterity. And even for Liana and Siraj, although you make us feel really unaccomplished at our advanced ages, what great Americans you are. This country is going to be in great hands. As conservatives, we know that all of these stories, all of our work fits together. Border security and the rule of law and energy independence make it possible for our economy to grow, which makes it possible to rebuild our military and education system. We need smaller government to have a stronger culture and healthier citizens to make for happier families. And we need all of the above to inspire a new sense of patriotism, to fight back against the left's counterattack waiting for us this November, next November, and in 2028 and every year beyond. That's what revitalizing our republic looks like. That work is already underway, thanks to your generosity. You've already made an extraordinary impact on our efforts. Many of you have already committed your support once again this year. And I hope you know from the bottom of our heart, not only do we not feel entitled to that, every single dollar that comes to this enterprise, whatever the purpose is, we feel a moral zeal to maximize the impact of. Thank you for helping us to do that. Because the coming fights, thank you. Because the coming fights will determine whether last November was the last gasp of the uniparty or our first triumph in America's greatest comeback. Whether we squander this moment in history or whether we seize it. Conservatives have the opportunity for today and tomorrow. We have the mandate, and as you can see, we have the plans. The only question is whether in these turbulent days, we have the vision to put those plans into action and the grit to see them through despite doubts and adversity and the chirping from the sidelines. It's ironic. Here in Florida, we've been taking in this conference, hearing all these exciting, ambitious plans. I'm even told, maybe with a little bit of firsthand knowledge, that the entire Heritage staff was getting some vitamin D at the pool this afternoon. Very, very important. I'm very happy, by the way, that you did that, because there's no sunshine in Washington. Literally, there's no sunshine in Washington right now, just to let you know. Speaking of Washington, back in Washington, the man fighting harder than all of us to save our country, Donald Trump, is taking flack from all sides because he is leading the implementation of that ambitious plan. And when you lead, and when you're ambitious, and when you're willing to take risks, you take a lot of flack. It's a sign that he's over the target, this country's over the target, and heritage is over the target. When I think about how heritage and the conservative movement should respond to this moment, I, of course, look for lessons from the past, parallels we can draw on. And in the last week, I found myself thinking a lot about one of my heroes from the founding era, Patrick Henry. 250 years ago, last month, Henry stood up at St. John's Church in Richmond, Virginia, and delivered one of the greatest speeches in American history. You all remember its most famous line, to be sure, "Give me liberty or give me death." That's one that always hits home. It is truly timeless. But there's another sequence in that speech that I think speaks even more specifically to us in this moment. For Henry's speech was not just a call to revolution. In his mind, the colonies had already passed that point. The war has actually begun, he said, whether Americans knew it or not. What Henry was calling for was the courage to see the revolution through, for fortitude, for perseverance, to push through the doubts and apprehensions of taking on so powerful a foe. "They tell us, sir, that we are weak," Henry said, "unable to cope with so formidable an adversary. But when shall we be stronger?" The question still resonates. When shall we be stronger? 6 months from now, when the left throws everything they have at us in Virginia and New Jersey? 18 months from now, when we head into the midterms? Shall we gather strength sitting on our hands, or as our president weathers a hurricane of criticism, while our majorities in Congress sidestep the most important issues facing our country? While working families wait, and wait some more for Washington to deliver them from a woke culture, a weaponized government, and a rigged economy? Of course not. We've worked too long, and we've worked too hard to squander this opportunity. This, right now, is the moment conservatives can enact permanent policy change, not just half-loaf compromises that we conservatives have been conditioned to accept as the best-case scenario. Rebuild our economy, rebuild our military, rebuild our local communities to answer the challenges of the coming generation. Look, this is our moment, not just to win elections or temporary 51 to 49 majorities, but to truly shape the future. This is our generation's shot to secure a new birth of freedom, to write a new chapter in the American story, one that begins with courage and ends with victory. But as I think you've come to expect, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. As extraordinary as this moment is, it's going to be just as fleeting. If we don't seize it now, it will slip away. It won't come back, maybe ever, certainly not for a long time. And what comes next, we know, will be worse than anything this country has ever endured. The left has not changed. Some of them may be rewriting their talking points, but the writing on their hearts is the same. They're still elitists who hate the Constitution. They're still globalists who hate our national sovereignty. They're still woke theocrats who hate religious liberty and parental rights and both moral truth and scientific fact. Other than that, they're great people. They're already regrouping. They're already refunding. They're already reasserting their power. Their victory in the Wisconsin Supreme Court race last week was not a fluke. They still control the media, they still control elite institutions, and they're going to weaponize both for as long as they can. That's why conservatives can't sit back. We have to stay in the fight and open new fronts in it. That's why we spent the last 2 days laying out a serious, bold, and urgent plan. Serious because we are the last line of defense for American liberty. Urgent because the battle, as you know, has already begun. As Patrick Henry put it, our brethren are already in the field. Why stand here idle? And bold, because this plan to revitalize the republic is like nothing the conservative movement has attempted before. And why is that? Because the threat from the radical left is like nothing we have confronted before. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is a plan we cannot accomplish without you. Let me speak plainly. Because I'm so grateful for what we've done together and hopeful and confident about what more we can do, I'm asking for your help. To execute these plans to win in Washington, to expand these operations to win in the states, to launch these projects to win in the culture, Heritage and Heritage Action need your support within the next 6 months. We ask you to continue to consider to support our work. We know that you are because you're here. And again, we don't feel entitled to it, but we hope that this year at this conference, we've given you as transparent, wide open view of why and how we do what we do, that you feel comfortable with these plans. To expand our election integrity and grassroots operations into critical states and districts. To build new coalitions to take up policy fights that President Trump and DOJ are sending and sending back to the states. And equipping our scholars and legal teams to continue the fight inside the swamp. This is not a wish list. It's a necessity. Its work, as you know from being here this week, is already underway. So, as is always the case, but particularly this year, when we are pedal to the metal, every dollar that you give will be spent immediately to fuel our efforts. This is an uncertain moment, certainly filled with a lot of promise. You also know that I and all of us at Heritage are hopeful. We are naturally and supernaturally optimists. But amid that hope really is a lot of uncertainty. So our success as a movement and as a nation is not guaranteed. But the only thing riskier than boldly leading conservatives into this unknown future is doing nothing. Our greatest danger right now is becoming complacent and letting the moment slip past. 250 years on, Americans still face Patrick Henry's question: when shall we grow stronger? At the Heritage Foundation, we have an answer. We'll be stronger every time we stand on principle and for America and for Americans. When we act with the urgency and courage this moment demands. When we realize the future is ours right now to win or to squander. When we understand that it is not the left or China or the media or any other adversary who can defeat us, only our own timidity. Just think for a moment. What do we think the other side wants us to be doing right now? Certainly not meeting here. What does Planned Parenthood or the teachers' unions or George Soros or Hillary or Kamala or Gavin Newsom or MSNBC want us to do right now? They want us to do nothing. They want us to be complacent. They definitely want Heritage to be quiet. They want us to be satisfied. They want us to think that the last 6 months is all we need because of the great election victory, and it's all we can hope for. They want all of us to bask in the success of 2024, eat some popcorn, and watch Fox News for the next 4 years. Now, nothing against popcorn and Fox News. I often do that. In fact, I was doing that yesterday afternoon. But we must do more. They want us to be spectators on the sidelines while they storm the field. I'm sorry to disappoint them, but the Heritage Foundation is not sitting this one out. And we're not sitting out the next one, or the next one, or the next one. But more than just being committed to stitching together courage year after year, which at Heritage is easy enough to summon with friends like you, we have a plan. Not just a tactical plan, but a strategic plan, which as I said at the opening evening, we need to be prepared to govern for the next 25 years. And let us engage in best case scenario thinking as the best way to inspire Americans to an aspirational vision for reinstilling the American dream. Our brethren are already in the field, Patrick Henry said. Why stand we here idle? We don't. We won't. And we can't. I can't help but think that if Patrick Henry were around today, that not only would he love being here with all of you, and we certainly would give him the last keynote slot at the conference, that he would look at President Trump and his entire administration and be convinced that the American dream was still possible to revitalize. And I also can't help but think that he would particularly love our vice president, who you may remember the night he was nominated to be President Trump's running mate, gave one of the most stirring speeches in modern political history in Milwaukee at the Republican National Convention. And it's toward the end of that speech that the vice president said that America is not merely an idea. It's a place. It's Earth. Reflecting on taking his then newlywed wife to his ancestral family cemetery in eastern Kentucky. J.D. Vance talked about his ancestors being buried there, and he and his family being buried there. What we do at Heritage, and what you do for Heritage and in your own lives, isn't just about an idea, as noble and wonderful as it is. It's about a place where we were born or where we immigrated. It's a place where we are likely to be buried. The earth. It's a place our children and grandchildren and generations after us, God willing, will be born and buried. And I know I can speak on behalf of all of you and your families that this providential moment we've been given to save this republic and revitalize America gives honor to all of those people who came before us, wherever they were from, who in their last second, no doubt, were as grateful as you and I are to call ourselves Americans. God bless you. Thank you.
The Kevin Roberts Show is brought to you by more than 10 million supporters of the Heritage Foundation. The executive producer is Crystal Kate Bonham. Sound design by Lauren Evans, Mark Guiney, Tim Kennedy, and Joseph Fonsbakowski. For more information and to subscribe, please visit heritage.org.